Hey, what's up you guys? Welcome back to the channel. It is your local problematic Leo, and today we're doing something solely to make me feel better. Now, if you'd watched my previous video, you might know that I took some medication that my skin didn't necessarily take too kindly to. So unfortunately, I haven't been able to play around in any of my eyeshadows. Now, on a regular daily basis, I tended to throw something on. I didn't necessarily do the craziest looks out there, but I did kind of have a little bit of fun with something shimmery on my lids. Now, happily, everything is healing up quite nicely, and in a couple of days I might be able to toss something on there. However, for now, I wanted to go ahead and take a look through my current collection and enjoy it, at least in video format. So I figured that I would go ahead and show you each of these palettes individually, swatch out a couple colors that I really felt made these palettes shine, and let you know whether I felt like they were worth picking up or not. Because there are some that I really feel strongly about, and there are others that I'm just a little bit lukewarm on. Now I'm gonna go ahead and clear these off real quick, and then we're gonna start with the one palette I'm 100% sure I am decluttering, and it absolutely breaks my heart. Alright, so the first and only palette that is currently on the chopping block is the NYX Ultimate Shadow Palette in Phoenix. Now, I have to admit, this has been my favorite for a very, very long time, and as you can see, it's got some gorgeous reds and yellows in there. Now, the reason that I'm gonna be getting rid of this is the shimmers aren't necessarily the best. This one right in this corner over here is this beautiful kind of like, I don't know, like brownie taupey shade. It's really, really reflective, but unfortunately, like the rest of the shimmers in this palette are not fantastic, but the mattes are like gorgeous. This brown over here kind of like appears a little bit more purpley on your lid, which I kind of like because it's like a nice cool brown purple. This purple is fantastic as well. In fact, just all of the mattes are great in this. It's a very, very affordable palette. However, I have other colors like this in other palettes that I reach for a little bit more. So part of me is like, oh, while I do love it, I could hand this off to my little sister, and I think that she might actually get more use of it than I currently am. Oh, this red shimmer too. You guys know I'm a sucker for red shimmers, but right there, that's actually not half bad, right? Alrighty, so let's kick things off with a little bit of K-Beauty, starting with the I'm Mimi card palettes. Now, these ones are absolutely adorable. As you can see, they have these logos that'll actually swap on you as you kind of turn them. It brings me back to when I was a little bit of a kid. And as you can see, they do have a nice mirror on there. Look at yourselves, say hi. But it is also a 9-pan along with a blush included. Now, for most practical uses, I don't actually touch these blushes just because they're not the right color for me. However, that red is stunning all over the lid. Alright, so right up top we have the love card. Over here is the lucky card. Then my favorite out of all of them is the red card. Of course, because it's red and I'm obsessed. Now, one of the things that I absolutely love about these palettes is the fact that they contain a lot of like shimmery, glittery shades. Now, they're not like pressed glitters we've been seeing in some ColourPops recently or even in Anastasia's latest palette, but these are like shimmery glitters. They stick to the eye really, really nice. You don't get much fallout whatsoever. You don't need anything to like stick them to the lid. However, one thing that I will say is they are sheer. As with a lot of Korean shadows, they are not the most pigmented out there. However, if you just want to go for like a wet lid look, the shimmers in these are definitely my favorite out of all of the brands out there, at least out of all of the American brands. I prefer Korean shimmers hands down, and this one. So this one looks pretty nondescript, and honestly, when I first picked up the love card, I was like, this is kind of like the weakest out of all of them, but if you are just looking for like a sheer wash of shimmery glitter on the lids, oh my god, it's absolutely amazing. Oh no, the sun is changing, but as you can see, it's so pretty and shimmery, and I'm gonna toss it right here, and I hope that you can catch all of that shimmery. By the way, if you're seeing any shimmery glitteriness on my wrist from earlier, that's just like a body butter that I use that happens to have it, but just pay attention to the color and just look at the shimmery glitteriness there. It's absolutely beautiful. It's like this pinky brown. Now, this one up here is like pink with a little bit of gold shimmer in there. This one is actually more like a brown shimmer satin. It's not as pretty as this one here. They look very, very similar, but this one tends to come off a little bit more glittery. However, I do love that overall if you're just looking for a nice wash of color. This one right here is, of course, my favorite. The red is not a red though. Don't believe the hype. That's not what that is. It's more of like a coral. It's like a duochrome. It's like red and gold. It's really, really pretty. But my favorite is actually this kind of like nudie champagne-y one up top, and that gold is really pretty as well. Let's go ahead and swatch them real quick so that you can see what they end up looking like. Again, like I was saying, they are a sheer wash of color, so it's nothing like insanely strong, but just a little bit of that over your lids. Oh my, I can see it. I see it in the camera. It's so glittery and shimmery. It's so freaking pretty. Let's do the red one too, or the quote unquote red one. It's more of like a duochrome red gold, but you know, it's not intense. And that's one of the big things that I need to put out there, is it's not an intense red. So it's definitely not something that you would be afraid to use. As you can see, it's like a nice, just kind of like sheer reddy pinky wash. And that's why I love using the red blush down here as kind of like a lid color and then tossing that red over it, so you get a nice strong red base with a little bit of the shimmer on the top. Those ones are fantastic. Now, you see me raving about all of these shimmers, but we do have an all matte palette here. Now, if I'm gonna be honest, it is not my favorite of these three, just because, you know, the whole quality that I quite enjoy from these is the shimmeriness. But what I will say is I've been playing around with this a lot when it comes to some of my ColourPop Super Shock shadows. So I'll actually use this dark brown here as a liner. That red is beautiful. It's a kind of like a washed out maroony rosy tone. It's beautiful. These two shades over here are absolutely fantastic. This one's a little more peachy. This one is a little bit more golden mustardy. And then these two are just great kind of like cool toned contouring shades. Up top, I can't really use them because they are very, very light. This one does impart a little bit of pinkness on my lid, but because of the fact that I've been so rashy lately, that's a color that I'm staying away from because I don't want to remind myself of that. The blush in here is really, really nice as well. It's kind of like this natural brownie blush. It's very, very soft, and it doesn't really show up too much on my skin, but it does give just a soft like flush. But if you're lighter than me, this will actually look very, very nice on you. Works great on the lids as well. So while it's not necessarily my favorite, I do have to admit that it has its uses. Wow, I'm never gonna get these straight, but then again, I'm not, so what are you gonna expect out of me? Okay, so next up we have my 3CE eyeshadow collection, and let me tell you right now, out of everything that I own, the mattes in here are the silkiest, just smoothest, most blendable shadows ever. They're absolutely fantastic, and when it comes to Korean shadows, 3CE is widely known as having the most pigment out of all of them. So, you know, whatever you have in the pan tends to be very, very close to what shows up on your lid. Now, we're gonna start off with Dainty Tasty, which is actually this trio, and I kind of love it. It has this nice like creamy peachy shade up top, which you can kind of like wash all over the lid if you're just trying to be low key. This one over here is this pretty kind of like really dusty brick, almost slightly rosy tone, and then down at the bottom you've got this great camel tone. So you've got the option of 3 different looks here if you're just using them all over the lid, or you can kind of like blend them and combine them in different ways. I actually absolutely love it when using the hashtag all nighter palette, and this one is just all glitter shimmer, so you could just bring those two and be done with it. Now, when it comes down to their 9 pans, we have the fan favorite, which is hashtag Overtake. This one over here is hashtag Plot Twist. We have the all matte, which is hashtag Smoother, and the all glitter, which is hashtag All Nighter. Now, this one up here is Overtake. A lot of people have like shown this off as their channel. It's this beautiful kind of like rosy, warmy, peachy tone. And with all of these palettes, I find that I have like 1 or 2 star shades that I just absolutely love. So in Overtake, my 2 favorites are definitely the one down at the bottom over here, as well as the one in the center. And then this shimmer right here is absolutely fantastic. Now this one is a little bit more orangey than this one. This one tends to come off a little bit reddier. They both have shimmer in them, so again, not everybody is gonna like matte with shimmers, but me personally, I think that they're absolutely fantastic. This is great if you're trying to do kind of like a, what's the word I wanna call it? Like a golden hour, magic hour glow. That's what I'm talking about. But again, when it comes down to Korean shimmers, like it's just super reflective and just shimmery, glittery. It's very similar to the ones that we had in the Mimi palettes. But the one thing that I will say is the 3CE ones definitely pack a little bit more of a punch, and they better because they are far more expensive. Like, I hate to say it, like I was looking at the 9 pans of these as compared to what we have in the States, and those ones are just like, these ones are kind of like expensive. So as you can see, that's that kind of like reddy, brownie color that has the glitter in there from the palette. This one is really, really fantastic. So if you're looking for something warm and really like, you can either like vamp it up or keep it nice and sweet on the lids, but that is definitely one of my favorites. Plot twist. Now, this one I really wanted to like more than I do. This is definitely more for like dramatic looks. As you can tell, you have some really, really dark shades over here. The shimmers are fairly dark. Now these two shades, I really can't use. This I can toss in the inner corner. This I can kind of wash all over the lids, and it's got a little bit of like a little glitter in there, just to kind of give more dimension to the eye. But the two mattes are really where it's at. That like really mustardy, caramelly color, not caramel, camel-y color down in the middle is one of my favorites, just to toss all over the lid. And then the shimmers in here are also really, really fantastic. These two shades down at the bottom look very similar, and they are, but this one is darker, and this one has a little bit more of a brown sheen to it, as opposed to like a cool brown sheen. Again, the shimmers in here are absolutely fantastic. You can just tell that they are very, very glittery and gorgeous. However, they are kind of similar to the ones in the Overtake. They're just a little less peachy and a little bit more cool toned and gold. As you can see, this one is a little bit warmer, that one's a little bit cooler, but both of them retain that super like shimmery, glittery formulation that I love in Korean beauty, especially their eyeshadows. Wow, I can't talk. But this next one here is smoother. Again, the whole top row I can't use, and I kind of like learned the painful way when it comes to Korean shadows. Like in American Beauty, you could probably use these and get away with these ones, but these ones are very sheer and soft, so they tend to blend in with my own eye color, not eye color, eyelid. But what you can actually do is use these to set anything that you have on your lid. Maybe your things are a little bit damp from skincare, or you've got a primer that you want to make sure is not insanely tacky. So those are fantastic for that. And then the light one I've used a couple times for like the inner corner, or if I was doing like a full matte lid and I just wanted to brighten the lid a little bit more, you can toss either of those two shades. They're fantastic, but really where it shines for me is from this point on down. Again, we have two nice cool tones right there. We have these two kind of like more yellow based tones, and then this one is a little bit rosier. I do absolutely love this shade though. It's absolutely fantastic. Oh, it's just so buttery smooth. I love it. It's really, really, really great. I love that for just kind of like a companion palette to some other shimmers that I may or may not have. This, along with the all-nighter, is just like a workhorse for me. Also, you can use this with some of the Super Shock shadows that are really, really glittery out there. That's gonna bug me. Okay, so when it comes to the all-nighter palette, this I want to swatch the entire thing up because it's absolutely freaking beautiful. It's just pure Korean beauty shimmer. Now, the thing about these is they are sheer, and you have to kind of like learn to accept that, but think about it, if you're gonna do an all matte lid and then toss some of this on top, oh, it's just beautiful. Or you can use a glitter base on your lids and really pack these on, and they deliver so much dimensional shimmer and glimmer. It's fantastic. All right, so no funny business. I went ahead and wiped off my wrist. No glimmer, not even from the body butter that I had put on earlier. So it's pure virgin flesh. Now, these shades, again, like I was stressing, are very much just like soft sheens. They just kind of like have this wet look when you put them over the lid. However, these top shades really just have different types of reflex. So as you can see, that just kind of looks like wet skin, right? That one's more of like a silver and gold reflect to it. So it's got a little bit of both. And then as you can see, the middle shade is more of like a pure gold. It's got a little bit more of a yellow tinge to it. And then this one at the end is really fantastic. I had some tissue over there, so don't mind that. This one is like pinky, but I'm not sure if you're gonna be able to tell. It's got a little bit of like a purpley and bluey shift. Well, it's more like pinky and like magenta-y shift to it. So it's just fantastic, and it'll work with a lot of the looks that you have out there. Now, this is where you start picking up on a little bit more of the base shades. Oh my God, that's just so beautiful and so reflective. I absolutely freaking love it. But as you can see, this one is a little bit more orangey. This one's got a little bit more pink to it. And this is why I kind of really love having this palette and mixing it in with just a pure matte palette, because these really give you a whole lot of shimmer and a lot of glimmer, and you have such a wide variety of shades in here. I can't wait till we get to the very end. Not that these next two shades aren't also beautiful, but that last shade, I absolutely love it. And this one again is kind of like more of an orangey coppery shade, really pretty. This next one right here in the middle, it kind of looks a little like Cheeto-esque, if I'm gonna be honest, but it reminds me a lot of the Leo shade in ColourPop singles, and I've actually layered these two together. So it doesn't come off as orangey, it's just kind of like got a goldy peachy shimmer to it, but I've layered them on top of each other, or this on top of Leo, and it kind of gives that extra like glorious oomph. Now this last shade, really beautiful as just a wash, but you can pack it onto your lids, and it's just this beautiful, like rich, deep brown. Well, I guess you can't really call it a deep brown shade, but it's like a medium to deep brown shade, and then just packed all over the lid and blended out. Oh, it's so beautiful. This one is a fantastic palette to be used with any just Soul matte palettes like we saw with the 3CE single ones right there, or with something along the lines of smoother. So definitely a big fan when using that in conjunction with any one of these. Alright, so I was about to go wash my arm off so that we can go ahead and move on to some other shadows, but before I did, I wanted to go ahead and take you guys outside so you could get a closer look at exactly how shimmery and glimmery these ones are. Ugh, they're absolutely beautiful. Holy shit, that looks so insanely neon right now. It's kind of crazy. Now, I figured since we were on the subject of smaller palettes, I would go ahead and toss out my two Huda Beauty obsessions. Now, if I'm gonna be honest with you, the only reason that I picked up the neon ones is because I actually have this thing that I love as a cream cheek product, and they're from 3CE, and they actually released their Stranger Lights collection, which was also in neon packaging. So part of me was like, listen, we're gonna go ahead and have to pick this up. Now, the reviews on this green palette were that it was terrible. But when I saw it, I was kind of like, I sort of love that, and I know it's gonna sound absolutely nuts, but I didn't actually pick up the green palette for the greens. I actually picked up the green palette for these tones down here. Now this pink, I absolutely freaking love as just like a wash all over the lids, and this is kind of like this pinky berry shimmery shade. It's very similar, and I find it really interesting, and maybe it's because Huda is, I don't know if she's based in a different part of the world, or maybe it's just part of her culture, but I find that these are actually very similar shades or similar textures to what you'll find in Korea. So this actually is another one of those crazy shimmery types. And so I was like really into these two shades specifically, as well as this kind of like pinky tone. And this one in the middle is this really cool kind of like whitish greenish shade that I really liked. So I was like, okay, you know what? I'll go ahead and give it a shot. So after playing with it for a while, it's not my favorite out of the bunch, but I think that it is so different and so unique that I just can't say no to it. Let me go ahead and give a little bit of a swatch of my favorite colors. I actually really like this kind of deep, dark purple-y one over here. Again, these act very similarly to the Korean palette ones, where they are very like shimmery, but they don't really have a lot of like base tone to them. So once again, as you can see, it's that same kind of glittery, shimmery texture that I really like. So that combined with that pink, you know, and a little bit of a touch of that neon green really swayed me to go ahead and pick that up. I like moved for 1 second and like my color switch has just gone missing. It just ran off somewhere. I don't know where you went, baby, but come back. All right, so that is the story of the Neon palette. However, the Nude Obsessions in Rich, oh, there's so many good memories tied to this one. I call this one my impeachment palette. As soon as that one came through, I was like, ah, oh, this is my time to shine. Now, here's the thing. I'd wanted the Nude Obsessions in Rich for a long time because of the fact that it had so many red tones. And as you guys know, I'm a sucker for red shadows and shadows. Kind of made it a little bit more wearable because sometimes if I go heavy on the red, it looks a little crazy, and it can still kind of look crazy with this, but it's kind of like red and berries and some brownie reds that are really pretty as well. But really what sold this palette to me was this shade right here and that shade. Oh, they're absolutely gorgeous. Now this one is a beautiful metallic red, and not many brands actually go out and do crazy reds, but as you can see right here, it's just like rich and like, oh my God, I love it. Oh, it's so pretty. I just can't stop looking at it. Oh, it's fantastic. And then of course, we also have that kind of like champagne-y tone. Like all of the shimmers in this are absolutely gorgeous, but like, man, this palette just like hit chords with me. Look at it, it's like this peachy, like, I can't do anything but make noises at this palette because it's so freaking gorgeous. Like even this deep tone right here, just, I pushed a little too hard. I got a lot of pigment on my finger. Just know that these shimmers are very soft. So when you pick up a lot, they can tend to be a tad bit flaky. I need to clean that up a little bit, but look, it's like a brownie, purpley, burgundy, it's beautiful. Like, I just can't get enough of this palette. Like, legitimately, there's only one thing that I have to say is this shade right here can be a bit problematic. So I tend to have to put it on like a domed pencil brush and blend it out. I guess you would say a little bit more than I would with any other shadows, but the shimmers in this palette are just right up my freaking alley. Oh my God, look at them. It's just sickening how beautiful these are. Alrighty, so the next set of palettes is a little bit contentious because they are from BH's Zodiac collection. Now, the original Zodiac palette was well loved. Everybody really enjoyed that one. The Love Signs one, a little bit less. And then when we got to the individual Zodiac palettes, everybody was up in arms. There were very few groups of signs that I really think enjoyed the palettes that were given to them. But if I'm gonna be honest with you, and I might get in trouble for saying this, I kind of actually really enjoyed the Leo palette, okay? I'm just putting it out there into the universe. I wish that we didn't have this blue because really, why do we have a blue shade? I don't understand. I get it, it's royal blue, but where in this collection of shades does blue go? You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't jive. If you gave us a fiery red, that would be absolutely fantastic. Or if you just even knocked out that blue and gave us like a deep brown, yo, I mean, I'd be okay with that. It's a little basic, bitch. It's a little bit repetitive. However, I do absolutely love this. However, one of the things that I do want to point out is all of these shimmers are absolutely fantastic, but to me, the star of the show is actually this highlighter in the center. You can use it as an inner corner highlight, or you can use it as an actual highlight, and it's actually perfect for my skin tone. It's nice and peachy. It doesn't have that gold finish that a lot of highlighters do, and I'm like, I mean, like gold. Like, nobody at this skin tone level is like, you know, reaching for like a gold reflect. I would think like a peachy or a nude reflect would make more sense, and this one is absolutely fantastic for that. I've actually used this as a lid shade too, so I would go into this kind of like orangey. By this way, this is a great orangey transition shade. I love that one. But basically, the way that this one goes, it's just this beautiful kind of like peachy shimmer. As you can see, it's really reflective. You can do it very, very lightly on the tops of your cheeks to give you a highlight. It is just a teensy bit sparkly, but not an insane amount. But on its own, like inner corner highlight or just kind of like a center of the lid, kind of like pop in there for a bit of a highlight, it's absolutely beautiful as well. And I want to go ahead and swatch this matte too, because this transition shade is just really, really beautiful. It's not too intense, but it works quite nicely with plenty of the shades in there. But yeah, it's just really, really beautiful. Don't be mad at me, but I actually really do like this palette, except for that really, really odd blue, which I still, it still bothers me that they did that to us. Now, moving on to the Zodiac palette, I have to admit, I don't get much use out of this. I feel like larger palettes, I just get a little bit lost in. However, I do have my favorites with this one, if I'm gonna be honest with you. And it's actually not my own shade. Which makes me very sad. Like, none of this setup makes sense. Like, why is Scorpio an orangey copper? That doesn't line up whatsoever. Why is Libra like a red? Like, I get like a purple, but it would be more like a sheer purple. It would be like if Libra and Leo like swap places, that would make a little bit more sense to me, but I don't see it. Why is Aries blue? It bothered me as somebody who does follow the Zodiac, but I will say one thing. I don't know why, but in both of these palettes, Pisces is absolutely gorgeous. And let me go ahead and show that to you right now, because that is really the star of the show for me in this palette and what I keep reaching for in this palette. It's really, really beautiful, like brownie, like rosy tone. It's just freaking beautiful. Oh my God, I love it. It's just got like the perfect depth to it, which it will richen up your lids, but not necessarily take it way too dark. It's a beautiful like mid-tone peach. It's kind of like brown. It's not like intense either. It's like a washed out dull brownie. Oh, it's just freaking beautiful. So that shade is definitely one of the ones that I will consistently go back for. I also have to say that Virgo is kind of nice, and so is Leo. Not enough to really swatch and show off. These mattes, perfectly fine. This is a serviceable palette. However, I just feel like there's a lot that I don't use in here. In fact, there's so much that I don't use that I kind of wish that there was, you know, a smaller version of it, aka these, but better. And I have to say that this definitely made me a fan of their baked formula, because again, it's just so like hyper shiny and metallic. It just looks absolutely freaking wet. Now, when it comes to the Love Signs palette, I don't actually get very much use, if any use, from this thing, because the colors are just way too bright for me. Now, a lot of it did make more sense, like Leo is definitely that goldy copper. I don't know why Cancer is yellow. Cancer's a water sign. It's not even like a sandy, beachy thing that would go for a crab. And why is Virgo Cheeto dust? Like, that makes no sense. A Virgo would not walk around with Cheeto dust on their fingers. That's just not a very Virgonian thing to do. However, per usual, I don't know who made these palettes, but they must love Pisceans, because look at this kind of like deep brownie shade. It's kind of like a cool antique brass tone. It's beautiful. Whoever made this must have been a Pisces, because literally they just give Pisces the best freaking shades ever. However, Leo in this is quite beautiful. And also, Cancer in this is quite nice as well. It's this really beautiful yellowy shade. It reminds me of the yellow that you can find in the Leo palette, and also like the Honey palettes from Urban Decay Naked, and it's got a lot of those similar tones in there as well. So you could definitely use this in replacement for that. And one of the things I will point out, I don't usually like blues, but this Aquarius shade is like this deep, dark, dingy blue that I think that I could definitely see myself actually using from time to time if I just wanted to like oil slick and grunge up my lids. That would be really pretty. And this Taurus shade is actually very nice too. There's a lot of shades that I like in this. However, there's a lot of shades that I like in this that I don't think I would use together. I'm just too basic for this palette. However, it is really pretty and the formulas are really gorgeous. Let me give you like the full-on depth. I have to turn my entire body. But yeah, it's really, really pretty. Just not something that I would use every day. Alrighty, so since we're on the 9-pan palette train, I figured I would go ahead and bust out my ColourPop ones. Now, I don't know what the sun is doing. Again, I'm working with 100% natural light, and it is a little bit dreary outside, so these are appearing a little bit cooler than they actually are in real life. But let's start off with the palette that really got my obsession going, which was the Brown Sugar palette. This one is by Karuchi and ColourPop. So this one is just, I think, my favorite nude palette so far. It's got some great shades in here. If you just want like something light over the lids, you can pick up Mocha or actually Chai or Jamocha, and those are absolutely fabulous if you're just trying to do like a wash over the lids, and a little bit of ginger on the center of the eye is absolutely fantastic. However, if you're trying to make things a little bit richer, Auburn is so beautiful and so is Amber. The only shade that I still to this day can't manage to make work is Sauté, which is this kind of like duochrome. It's kind of like a blue brown one. I don't know. I've tried several times to do something with that and it just never pans out the way that I want it to. However, the rest of the shades in this palette have all been absolutely fantastic. Chalk is great as well. All of the warm shades I just absolutely love. Now, the next palette, this one is one of those that I thought I would love because just on paper, it felt like it would be something for me. It's the California Love palette. And as you can see, it's got like some reddy tones, it's got some yellow tones, it's got some glorious golds, and it's got a little bit of like a bronzy red feeling. It's very orangey within its vibes. Well, it's not like blatantly orangey, but when you combine the tones, it's got like this goldeny, bronzy, orangey glow to it that's, I don't know, for some reason just didn't work for me. I don't know what it is. This palette was a highly unexpected. I thought that the shades I would fall in love with was Gold Rush, which is this kind of like bricky, orangey, reddy shade with some shimmer in this, or Sequoia. Those two shades were like the stars of the show for me. But for some reason, I just didn't connect with them as much as I did Laguna and the Bay. It just shows like what a basic bitch I am. I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna love these really crazy pops of color. Don't get me wrong, I love the pops of color, but I just felt like Laguna and the Bay were my go-tos. Next up, I thought that this one right here, Diego. All right, one of the big reasons that I picked up this palette was because of the fact that at one point I was down in San Diego, and that was a great time down there. I also live in California, so a lot of these places I've actually been to. Part of one of my old routes for work actually had me going through Highway 1. So there's a shade called the Highway 1 there. I was in San Diego. You know, I was also in the Bay. There's the Mission. There's like everything was kind of like calling out to me, and I have to admit that that was one of the big reasons why I picked it up. But all of the shades in here that I thought I was gonna use, I did not use. Diego is probably one of the most beautiful metallics out there. It is like foiled and kind of like a peachy gold, and you guys know I love myself a peachy gold. It's so reflective, it's crazy. And you would think that that would be the shade that I reach for the most in this palette, but no, it's not. You would also think that in this palette I would go ahead and reach for Chahwinga, which is kind of like this bronzy red brown. Like, look at that. It's a beautiful, beautiful shade that I picked up too much of, and now I gotta like blend out on my wrist. But like, it's this kind of like orangey, reddy brown that's really, really beautiful. But no, the shade that I reach for the most, because apparently I'm more of a basic bitch than I realize, is Cruisin'. It's just kind of like, you know, peachy, you know, goldy tone. And basically I would just use that with Laguna or the Bay, and I would just have like this really nice kind of like wash of warmth over the lid and a little bit of that in the center. I also have to admit, I can't vouch for pressed glitters, because pressed glitters, again, as I don't know if you guys have seen this when you guys looked at my contact lens reviews, but the way that my eyelashes are, they're kind of like pointed like a Venus flytrap a little bit. So basically, any dust or any particles that are like out there in the wild, my lashes just like clamp onto and drag into my eye. So I don't really like having things that could potentially fall in my eye. But this is probably one of my favorite pressed glitters, and I have a couple from ColourPop, but the glitters in this one are really, really, really fine, and as you can see, I can kind of like drag them out to a point. Look at how fine I made that point. That was all natural. I did that on camera, but the glitters are really, really small on this one, so they're not crazy big chunky glitters, and as you can see, there's really not much left on my finger from that, so it like transfers really, really nicely. And if I was gonna do a pressed glitter on my lid, this would probably be the type that I would do. All in all, I've actually gotten some good use out of this palette. It's just not the type of use I thought I would get. Next up, we have the newest addition to my ColourPop palettes, which of course is the Going Coconuts. You guys know I love myself a nude palette. You've seen it with all of my 3CE ones. You've even seen it in some of my ColourPop ones. This is kind of fantastic and very similar to the California Love palette. That's what it is, yeah. It's not for the shades that I thought I would like, to be completely honest with you. Everybody was going absolutely nuts over this Cocoa Crush shade, and I was kind of obsessed with it too, if I'm gonna be honest with you. But out of this entire palette, I don't actually feel like that's the star of the show, and it's gonna sound crazy, but to me, the shades that I love the most are Shell Yeah and Coolada. Those, I think, are actually the best shades in this entire palette. But let me go ahead and, you know, swatch out Cocoa Crush, because everybody loved this. And I can see why, definitely, because I've, had several shades like this in other palettes that I also enjoy. It's kind of like this icy, peachy, like pinky nudie shade, so it's kind of got some warmth to it. It's also got some cool to it, so it kind of works with this palette. Oh, you can see all of it flaking off right there. Let's pretend that that didn't happen. But really, for me, it's the mattes in this palette that really call my name. Like, oh my god, Shell Yeah, you're so beautiful. Look at it. It's kind of like this dusty rose shade. It's really, really freaking pretty. And then Coolada, it just looks like a neutral brown, but kind of like when you actually put it down, it has a little bit of a purpley kind of like brownness to it. So it's really, really cool, and it's definitely not like intensely pigmented. Well, I mean, it's got pigment to it. You can definitely build it up, but you can do it as a nice little light wash on the lid and blend it out, and it blends out so nicely too. So really, those two are the stars of the show for me. De Coco is also a great shade, sometimes just like a little bit all over the lid, and it's this really beautiful cool brown. And I've noticed that in a lot of my palettes, I have a lot of warm brown shades, but never like a cool brown. It's even, I mean, I guess you could say that the shimmer itself is like cool, but the undertone has a little bit of warmth to it, so it really does play into the whole neutrality of these shades. Regardless, I think that the Coconut, or Going Coconuts palette is absolutely beautiful and a really, really great pickup, especially if you're going for something a little bit more neutral. It's got a little bit of both in there, and I'm a big fan. Alrighty, so we're in the home stretch with my last three palettes, and this one is a fan favorite in the Urban Decay Born to Run. Now, if I'm gonna be completely honest with you, I don't 100% love this one. Really, the reason I picked it up was because it was like 50% off, and I was like, listen, I gotta give it a try because everybody has said such great things about it. And like, the thing about it is, I don't hate it, but I don't quite love it. When I strip away the shades that I don't really care for, it doesn't leave very much else. And actually, I think that this was a great palette for me to learn from, like what my tastes were. I don't like crazy oranges. I don't like crazy purples. So like these three right here, those can go. I'm not super duper into that. Blues really don't necessarily work well on my eye color. So these ones, not my favorite whatsoever. So that's already like a decent chunk of the palette gone, right? And then Breakaway doesn't really do anything for my lids unless I want to set it. Weekender barely does anything there, so part of me is like, yeah, we're kind of like getting down to brass tacks here and there's not much left. Guilt Trip, I also don't like because I don't like cool purples. That's just a me thing. So at the end of the day, we've got maybe these shades over here, a couple of these shades over here, like Punk, Double Life, Accelerates, and Stranded and Blaze. And so a part of me was like, I guess I don't feel bad at getting this 50% off because literally I only like about 50% of the palette. But what I will say is I do love me some Double Life. It's a really, really nice deep bronze shade. I think that it's supposed to be like a dual chrome. So like it kind of flashes this bronzier color and then it has this cooler brown like shift to it. But to me, like it's not that crazy. Ignite is also a beautiful foily color. I absolutely love it. But it is a standard kind of copper, right? So it's nothing too crazy. The other shade that I really, really like from this is Stranded and Blaze. Now, Stranded is a fairly typical shimmer. It's not like the brightest, most reflective, but if you're just trying to do something nice and subtle, I actually quite enjoy it. And then Blaze is a weird shade. However, one of the things that I don't necessarily love is like a super hyper reflective inner corner highlight, and it's kind of like this satiny nude cream pink. It's got a little bit of a shift to it, which I quite enjoy. You can kind of see a little bit of that pink reflect in there. So it's great because it's very close to my skin tone. It's not obnoxiously bright, but it does kind of like brighten the inner corner of my eye a little bit and provide this really cool pink shift to it. And what I've been kind of finding is I like using Still Shot, this kind of like pinky shade, as kind of like an outer halo to it, so it's nice and kind of like soft and subtle. You can see it's like a nice little wash on the lids. Then I'll either toss Blaze or Stranded in the middle to kind of give that nice magic hour glow to the lids. I really, really love that. Of course, Riff is a great kind of like standard brown. Punk is great to kind of deepen things up with. Good As Gone is a lot cooler than it looks here, so it kind of operates as like a brown gray. So that's kind of nice, I guess. But all in all, I didn't absolutely love this palette. I did get some decent use out of it though. Alrighty, so unfortunately when working with natural sunlight, sometimes that bastard likes to move, which means sometimes I gotta move my setup a little bit, so pardon me if things look a little bit odd. Regardless, we are at my final two palettes, and they're kind of like the crown jewels of my collection. First and foremost, we have the absolutely gorgeous Jackie Aina palette. Now, I'm about to say something that might make some people mad, but you just gonna have to cope. I feel like she got robbed when they did like Trend Mood's vote for collaboration of the year. Like, I get it. Sometimes when you want to see two people collaborate, they can be your favorites and you can really, really enjoy them. But when I think of collaboration of the year, I mean, like, what did they put out? Did they put out something good? Like, when I'm thinking of my musical artists, yeah, I might like my music artists individually, but if they put out a shit song, I don't think that collaboration is very good. And what I saw win was not very good. However, the Jackie Aina palette is just absolutely freaking gorgeous. So is the Sultry, but we'll take a look at that in a second. Now, this baby. Oh my goody gracious. This is just absolutely nuts. So look at that in the light. It's freaking fantastic. And of course, it's got a beautiful strong red that y'all know I love. Now, I do have to say, y'all know I did not like a cool tone purple. Big Wig does not actually seem that cool tone when I put it on my lid. It's actually, you still get the purpliness from it, but it's not so crazy intense. Pinker, I did not think I was going to use either, which is this shade right here, but I actually found that it's a little bit more mauve-y on my lid, which I really, really like. And Supreme, which is being supremely washed out right now. You can see two different lights there. Look, it was on purpose all along. Supreme I actually really like as well. It's very similar to that shade in the, what is it called? The palette that I was just talking about a second ago, Urban Decay Border Run. So I actually use that very similarly to how I do there. So I'll actually toss Supreme on my lid and then Soleil in the center. Here, you can see a little bit better of that tone right there. And they actually give that really, really nice, soft, natural glow. You could do the same thing for Ginger as well, which is a great kind of like camely brown shade. And edges. Okay. It's a little bit of like a brick red shade here. However, it has some great warmth when you toss it on the lid. It's absolutely fantastic. Everybody goes crazy for Zam, and I do like it. I do like it. It's like a peachy golden copper. It's beautiful, but really the star of the show is Wigglies. You knew that that's where I was going. And I also love Trust Issues, shockingly, but let's go into the red because you know that that's where we have to start everything off, because reds are beautiful and we need to see them in way more palettes. Oh, it's just beautiful. Look at that. It's just rich and shiny and metallic in two different lights. It's beautiful. Oh, you know where my heart lies. You know how to win me over is with a nice like red in a palette. Zam, everybody goes nuts over. But again, I kind of find this to be very similar to the California Love palette gold that I didn't necessarily get into. A lot of people love it. I feel like this is definitely lighter than that, but it is really like this high foil metallic that's gorgeous. But I don't know, I don't use it as much as I do Soleil, maybe because I'm more like low key like that. But I think Soleil is like a really, really pretty kind of like peachy champagne, which tends to be a very big go-to shade for me. Again, it just kind of like gives your lids a nice wet look. Oh, I love it. And then Trust Issues. Trust Issues is really weird because of the fact, let me make sure, because it's like a very light shade. It looks white. It's not. It's very like a goldy glitter. I would almost say that this is like a topper shade. And I quite enjoy this on top of other shades as well. As you can see, it's very sheer. It's actually very, very similar, now that I think about it, to a lot of the Korean shades that I was talking about earlier. It's that same kind of like sheer wash that's very, very glittery, gives a lot of nice reflect. It's absolutely beautiful. A lot of people like Sponsored in Dollars. I'm not super duper into it, but I will tell you, Lituation is just sexy. It's like this sexy, smoky, brownie gray shade. Oh, it's absolutely beautiful. Blended out with a little bit of, you could really use credit or edges just to kind of like blur out the edges of this thing, but it's absolutely beautiful even on its own, just kind of like blurred out, because it does have, I don't know if you could tell, it's kind of like gray violety in the shimmer portion of it, but the undertone of it has a little bit of a warm brown. So really you could just blend this out on its own as an all over lid shade, and it's absolutely fantastic. It is, to me, officially the collaboration of the year. I don't care what anybody on the internet says. All right, and the final palette in my collection is the Anastasia Sultry palette. Look at it, it's kind of like this rosy bronze like shimmer glimmer. Absolutely love it. And if I'm gonna be honest with you, when I first saw this palette come out, I wasn't super duper impressed, and I think that's what everybody basically said about it. Nobody was all that impressed with this palette, but after seeing more and more reviews on it and seeing the looks that came out and seeing everybody put this on their top 10 list, I have to admit, it is a lot freaking more unique than I thought it was. I felt like it was very basic bitch, but now that I use it a bit more, I was like, oh, this is very, very different than what I already have. It's a cool toned neutral, but the shimmers in here are like, what the fuck? First and foremost, a lot of people were not super duper fond of Pearl, but I actually find that that's a shade that I reach for the most. It's kind of like this ivory with a little bit of pink in there. Like, it's just got this gorgeous like shimmer to it, and I combine that with so many different shades in this palette. It looks white on camera. I'm not sure if you can see the pinkiness in there, but I know in real life I can definitely see like a soft sheen of pink, and I think it's absolutely gorgeous. Now, the other shade that really sold me on this palette was Rose Quartz. I love me a good, like, rosy metallic, and this one was absolutely gorgeous. It's like pink and it's got a little bit of gold in there, but it's got enough depth that it can kind of like hang on its own. I just think it's absolutely gorgeous. So those were the two shades that stood out to me. But as I was playing more and more with this palette, I actually found that I really loved Cinder as well. It's just really beautiful. It's just kind of like this standard cool brownie tone, but I don't know, there's just something about it that just looks absolutely gorgeous. Teak is great as well. Ember and Steampunk are a little too yellowy for me, but you know what? They are both beautiful as well. Really, the only other shade that really made me go gaga for this palette, and it's gonna sound really weird, but it's this gray. And I laugh at that because I'm like, why would this be the color that makes me like really excited? But I have to say, one of my favorite color combinations is doing a wash of slate, kind of like haloing it around the eye, and then tossing a little bit of pearl in the center, just to kind of give it this kind of like gray look, but with a little bit of a pinky sheen. It's weird that that's what I really fell for when it came to this palette. But yeah, I kind of absolutely, because it's like a gray, but it's got a little bit of a hint, just a hint of mauvey purple in there, which I really, really love. I haven't played with Cyborg at all because that's not me, that's not my life. Maybe one of these days I'll bust it out, but really the ones that kind of like win it for me is Rose Quartz, Pearl, and Slate. Those are fantastic. Not that Birch isn't pretty too. Birch and Twig are great, cool toned, blendy, outy shades, but you know, if we're talking the stars of the show, these are definitely the ones that made me pick up the Sultry palette. Alrighty, so that about does it for my eyeshadow palette collection, so far at least. I hope you guys enjoyed, even if it was just to chill out and look at some colors. Let me know what was your favorite down in the comments below, and if there's anything that you want me to do a deeper dive into, let me know that as well. And in fact, you know, I've got a whole bunch of single shadows that if you want me to go ahead and swatch, I can do that too. Just let me know what you'd like to see in the future for this channel, and as always, love somebody, hurt nobody, and touch your body. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.